Hey there, what's up? It's Lauren from Well Behaved Women. We are so excited that you're about to listen to our newest episode, Sandra Day Part 2. Part 2. Dose. No, that's 12. Dose. We are having a little bit of a fundraiser. We're trying to get from one mic for 3 people to multiple ones. So any penny that you are able to donate over at our GoFundMe is greatly appreciated. Go check that out on any of our socials. But for now, enjoy the show. Thanks.
A well-behaved woman is trim and proper. Chores, always done. Not a hair out of place. When the husband comes home, she greets him with a smile.
I'm sorry, what the fuck?
Are you tired of Hitler?
I've heard no shame.
Okay, one liar as a kid can find another liar.
I want that stricken from the record.
She's gonna learn if she doesn't have a feather.
Then I can go fuck in the big house.
You're a mess, girl. I am here to audition for Babysitters Club extras.
I brought my own hammer. All right. Welcome to another episode of Well Behaved Women. I am one of your hosts, Hannah, and each week our other host, Lauren, tells me and B a new story about another woman throughout history, but we don't know who she is. So, well, this week we do, because we're doing part 2 of Sandra Day O'Connor.
Yay!
All right.
So we're kind of going to back up a little bit. She just got into SCOTUS. She's the first woman on the Supreme Court. And she is going to start sitting in on a bunch of cases. Obviously, she is a conservative. Previously on, I guess.
Previously on Sandra D.
She is a judge on a bunch of cases. She's conservative, but she has taken absolutely no public stance on birth control or the right to abortion. Even though she said specifically that she personally finds it reprehensible. So she's not in it, but she's chosen a couple times to kind of allow women to make the choice for themselves.
Yeah, she's been very careful with her wording, which is very, very smart. She has to be. She's the first woman there.
Exactly. Do we talk about the male getting into the female nursing school?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, where in that particular case, can you remind me what the justification was? It was because it's an education and should be available to all, regardless of gender in that case? It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it has been. It's been a couple weeks since we recorded the first part of this. So the case came about because a gentleman named Joe Hogan was denied entrance to a nursing school at Mississippi University that had thus far only allowed female students. In the original case, the district ruled in favor of the school for women. They stated that the admissions of only women in a women's school was just the school fulfilling the legitimate state cause, quote, in providing the greatest practical range of educational opportunities for its female student population.
Okay.
But when it got appealed and moved up to the Supreme Court, Sandra had different opinions. In a shocking move for gender equality, they ruled that qualified men must be admitted to the school, and Sandra reasoned that not allowing men into that school perpetuated the stereotype that nursing was a woman's job.
That's right. That was the other, because at first I was thinking, I get it, women need a school for women, but because it's specifically nursing, okay. All right, Sandy. I see it.
I see it. And this was a liberal majority. I mean, she was supposed to be the one that voted conservative, but she threw the decision the liberal way.
It's like she has her own mind and not just a party mind.
It's like she has her own mind. She mostly did side with Rehnquist on almost every vote, but there were some that she was like, nah.
Let me make an opinion here.
Well, and a lot of it was because she took things on a case-by-case basis. A lot of what judges do is go by precedent. So if there was a decision in a court beforehand and there are especially if there are multiple decisions that lean the same way in the eyes of the law, it's really easy to say, okay, there's a precedent set here, so I'm just going to go with what that is. And it's super easy to just continue on with that. But she took a lot of these cases, and our brains are about to get broken, because we talk about a lot of these cases, and it's not like it's just like, Johnny stole my apple. Should Johnny go to jail? No, it's like, this kind of stuff is super complicated. There's a reason it gets all the way to the Supreme Court.
It's a lot of philosophy at that point, because you were,
it really is.
It's some ethics into it.
It's interpretation of the law. It is behavioral intent. It's all of this stuff that you have to kind of factor in. And so Sandra was really good at taking it specifically case by case. She sat on such important cases as United States v. Valenzuela Bernal, which questioned the constitutionality of deporting aliens who may give testimony in alien smuggling operations.
Oh, okay.
So if they were about to get deported, but they had information that could take down smuggling
like
operations. Yeah.
Okay.
They ruled in the United States case, so they deported him anyway.
Oh, were they still able to testify?
That's the whole thing. What they're saying, they're saying is like that whether or not they testified didn't matter. They're going to get deported one way or another.
Yeah,
I see.
Their deportation does not guarantee them a spot in the country at the end.
Okay, yeah, that's very complicated. A very complicated situation, but it does suck to just straight deport them.
Well, and a lot of times, and this is an ongoing struggle where a lot of times, like, illegal immigrants witness a lot of crimes, but they struggle to come forward and talk about it, because if someone gets a wind of them being an illegal immigrant, ICE will get called on them.
Yeah.
And I
so
say,
like, why would they want to testify?
Undocumented.
Why bring attention to your location and your existence if it's going to get you sent out?
It's very dangerous, and ICE is like, they're
ICE
bullies,
is terrifying.
Man. They're bullies. So yeah,
they're worse than bullies. That is, they're life destroyers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, we ruled in favor of the United States, because why the fuck not?
USA. Yay.
Yeah. She ruled on Larkin v. Grendel's Den Incorporated. This was a case from Massachusetts. They had a law where if someone wanted to get a liquor license to open a store, any church or school within 500 feet of that address could object to the license.
Okay. I mean, well, how close again? Within
500 feet.
Within 500 feet? Is that still upheld today?
It's like a block away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is still upheld. Okay.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
In a lot of places.
In a lot of places it is, but the court here ruled that ruling violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, so freedom of speech and all that stuff. So it was like, 500 feet, come on.
Yeah, but I'm so curious how it went under freedom of speech. If it's a liquor store.
Well, it's like freedom of speech. Freedom of speech also includes like freedom of the press, freedom to sell goods. Like, it's not just freedom of speech.
Okay, I just thought of it strictly in terms of press and opinionatedness. Okay, so I didn't realize that the ability to establish a business falls under there.
No, hold on. So we're going to talk about it.
Love it. Okay.
The Establishment Clause in the Constitution says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So basically, just like I can't get mad at my neighbor if they have a different religion than I do.
Right. Obviously.
My business, my church can't change the way that the rest of the people around me live their lives.
I see.
So if someone wants to open up a liquor store a block away, I can be all huffy about it, but I can't legally do anything about it because they
all I
have
can do
their
is bitch
freedom.
about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Then that makes total sense now that I know. All right, this is fascinating.
I told you, our brains are going to break. She ruled on South Dakota v. Neville. These are in no particular order.
Neville Longbottom. No, I'm kidding.
It questioned whether refusing to submit to a field sobriety test is protected by the Fifth Amendment or not.
Oh, interesting. All right. What do we think before we get into the case?
This goes out to all the Midwesterners.
Yeah, all of the Midwesterners know. Oh God, I don't know. I think it does get held up. I guess because you're pleading the fifth, not pleading the fifth, but you're basically saying I do not consent to a field sobriety test. So my immediate brain thinks,
but those are two different things. Those are I do not consent, or
it's unconstitutional,
or it's unconstitutional for me to admit my guilt.
So, interesting. Okay, so where did they fall?
It does. They held that refusal can be taken as an admission of guilt in the trial. The officers in this case asked Neville if he would submit to a blood alcohol test, but he refused, stating, quote, "I'm too drunk. I won't pass the test."
Oh, no. Oh, well, that answers your question right there. At least he was honest. Oh, wow. Okay, well, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, the way that they ruled the way they did in this case.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I mean, and this is just advice for anybody out there, you can do whatever you want when it comes to getting pulled over with a DUI, because if you breathalyze in the field, you're going to have to breathalyze at the station anyway. So one way or another, if you blow anything, you're going back to the station.
Yep.
That does make sense, yeah.
You're fucked either way.
Yeah, just delay it just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
As long as you can, because there's an uptick and then a downtick.
Yeah.
Okay, she ruled on City of Akron v. Akron Center for Reproductive Health, which affirmed the right to abortion and struck down Ohio's then abortion laws as unconstitutional. They were
All right, what was it? What were their rules in place at the time?
Let me look them up.
Thank you so much, because this is very pertinent to life now.
Knew you were going to ask that question, and I didn't do it.
Oh, thanks.
All right, let's see. No, you're fine. One provision of the statute required abortions after the first trimester to be performed in a hospital. The court found that to be unconstitutional. This is straight from Wikipedia. The state had a compelling interest in regulating abortion after the first trimester, but accepted medical practice doesn't recommend for all second trimester to abortions to be performed in the hospital. It imposed an unnecessary burden that has the effect of infringing on the constitutional right to an abortion. Prohibition on unmarried minors. A physician may not perform an abortion on an unmarried minor under 15 without obtaining either consent from one of her parents or a judicial bypass.
Gosh.
The statute also stated before performing an abortion, the physician must inform the patient of the status of the pregnancy, state of fetal development, expected date of viability, health risk of abortion, and availability of adoption agencies and childbirth resources. The state may not attempt to influence the patient's choice between let's see. Another provision mandated a 24-hour waiting period after the patient signs a consent form. The court struck down the provision as no state interest is served by the imposition of an arbitrary and inflexible waiting period.
Yeah.
The final challenge provision required physicians to ensure that fetal remains are disposed of in a quote-unquote humane and sanitary manner. The majority deemed that to be unconstitutional, as criminal sanctions are imposed on doctors who break the law, but humane was unconstitutionally vague and so a violation of due process.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, really restrictive abortion procedures. And basically they were like, look, a lot of that just violates like basic human decency and your 14th Amendment right to privacy.
Yeah.
I think. No, Fourth Amendment right to privacy.
I know it was the right to privacy, but I can't remember. I thought it was 14.
I don't know. Hold on.
America, we know our laws.
The right of people to the Fourth Amendment is the right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause. So yeah, it's the Fourth Amendment.
That's the fourth. Okay, not the 14th.
Yeah. All right, so we did City of Akron v. Akron Center for Reproductive Health. Then we get into Webster v. Reproductive Health Services, which upheld state restrictions in Missouri that restricted abortion, stating that the incredibly strict laws somehow didn't violate the 14th Amendment.
So I wonder what the difference here is.
We will look at it.
Love it.
I remember why I didn't write all this down. It was because I knew I was going to have to just look it up and talk about it.
Oh. Yeah.
Again, from Wikipedia. So, state of Missouri passed a law in which its preamble stated that the quote unquote, the life of each human being begins at conception and quote, unborn children have protectable interests in life, health, and well-being. The statute, one, required that all Missouri state laws be interpreted to provide unborn children with rights equal to those enjoyed by other persons, subject to limits imposed by the federal constitution and federal court rulings. Two, prohibited government-employed doctors from aborting a fetus they believed to be viable. Three, prohibited the use of state employees or facilities to perform or assist abortions, except where the mother's life was in danger. And four, prohibited the use of public funds, employees, or facilities to encourage or counsel a woman to have an abortion, except where her life was in danger.
At least they care about her life in this instance. But that's like the bare minimum.
Do they, though?
Not really.
Do they really?
No, because they're forcing her to go do unsafe methods now.
Exactly. The court overturned
that was
the decision.
Upheld.
Yeah, so the lower court, the district court for the Western District of Missouri, struck down the above provisions and prohibited their enforcement. The decision was affirmed by this Court of Appeals, which ruled these provisions violated Roe v. Wade and later Supreme Court decisions. So then they took it to the Supreme Court, and the court overturned the decision of the lower court, saying, one, the court did not need to consider the constitutionality of the law's preamble, as it is not used to justify any abortion regulation otherwise invalid under Roe v. Wade. Two, the prohibitions on the use of public employees, facilities, and funds did not violate any of the court's abortion decisions, as no affirmative right to the use of state aid for non-therapeutic abortions existed. The state could allocate resources in favor of childbirth over abortion if it so chose. And three, provisions requiring testing for viability after 20 weeks of pregnancy were constitutional, but those limiting abortions in the second trimester of pregnancy were unconstitutional.
Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around all that.
Basically, a lot of this is like, I mean, there's no way to enforce most of these things, but we want to give the patient as much information as possible and as many alternatives to abortion as possible. And that does not infringe on their right of anything. They are just informing, just conversations.
Yeah.
Just talking.
But how they inform is very important, but I get what they're getting at. If it's not to save her life, then maybe there's, in their mind, another way to have this child born and put into a home. I get that. But it does come down to how are they informing them? How are they pressuring them is the other question.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So as time went on, she started getting more and more squirrely with her opinions. And while she sided with her buddy Rehnquist most of the time, she became more comfortable with her own status on the bench.
Get it, girl.
Get it, girl.
Get that confidence. I know you're conservative and I'm a liberal, but I get it because you're a woman and go get your power.
Go get it.
I'm done. I'm her hype woman. All right. She's powerful. She's on the Supreme Court. She's making her own decisions.
Yeah. So she heard a number of cases on abortion and had strong opinions of her own on regulations. In 1992, she went against the conservative vote and upheld the right to choose when the court decided on Planned Parenthood v. Casey. She wrote the majority opinion.
Good.
Quote, at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own... Fuck this. Hold on.
One's right to define their own fuck this.
Sorry, I just realized how that sounded. Yeah. I was like, you can read this. You are capable of reading this. Hannah's going to read.
At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life. Beliefs about these matters could not define the attributes of personhood were they formed under compulsion of the state. At the heart of liberty is the right to define. Yeah. Well, but yeah, okay. So if I'm getting it right at what she's saying, I'm horrible at reading comprehension, but here we go. So she's saying like everybody's own interpretation of their life, their existence, where humanhood starts, it can vary very much between people, just like with religion, just like with, political beliefs. So those are not to be imposed by the state. So neither should the understanding of when human life begins.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Yep.
Take that, school that told me I'm bad at reading. I'm not going to name the school.
All right. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg joined the court in 1993, she said she was happy to not be the only. Sandra said that she was happy to not be the only woman on the court anymore, and that it would be a relief of media clamor now that the attention was not solely on her.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, thank goodness. The paparazzi is not going to be focused on me anymore. Me.
Yeah, the paparazzi. Justice over here. Who are you wearing?
This is a black robe.
I was just going to say, there's a new robe in town.
And she brought her little lace doilies that hang around her neck.
Ginsburg did have style. I forgot about that.
I am very excited for a Ginsburg episode.
Mm.
We're going to go through all of the female justices.
Yes. Ooh, and Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Amy Coney Barrett. So.
Oh yeah, her too.
What are you trying to say? You have favorites?
I might have favorites. I have a favorite justice. Who doesn't?
Dirty leftist.
That is me. I'll wear it loud and proud. I'm dirty.
Okay. So she actually enjoyed spending time with the other members of the bench, and they like to have the justices eat lunch together to kind of grow camaraderie between them. They like to talk about stuff.
Oh yeah.
Essential philosophies of the world and how they believed in things so they could understand one another better.
Can you imagine being at that table? It sounds like it's going to be very not pretentious, but just
I would understand about half of it, and I'd just sit there and
I couldn't jump in. I'd just be sitting there going, oh yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I heard that.
But that's a good point too. You're right. You know what? You're right.
I can see both sides.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you know what they're talking about?
No.
Okay.
No, but eat your peas.
Okay. Oh, that's a good point. Oh yeah. Great.
Thanks.
So we've talked about the fact that she was kind of an unpredictable voter. Instead of looking at precedents, she ruled on a case-by-case basis. When possible, she would build on the majority to give it weight. So she, again, by cases, she would try to even also take okay, what are the rest of you thinking? Which side can I look at and give it more weight?
I so respect that.
When
a lot of people, sorry.
Go ahead.
I know. I totally respect that because a lot of times people, I think, just look at precedent. Boom. That's the answer. Boom. Follow precedent. And it takes I like that she's gathering as much information as she can to be as informed. And while I may not agree with everything, I respect that heavily.
No, I love it. There were a lot of times that there were pretty divisive cases. And in this, she would usually serve as the swing vote along with another justice, Anthony Kennedy. When cases lacked consensus overall, she would write as narrow a decision as possible so as not to be misunderstood or misrepresented.
Smart.
She was known for her pragmatism in her decisions, and it became less about political spectrums when she was in court and more about ideals.
Love it.
And she didn't really fall into even the conservative ideal either. Some even called her a moderate progressive.
How dare they?
You watch your mouth.
You watch your dirty little leftist mouth.
Moderate progressive.
Shut up.
Shut up about progressives. So
don't say the P word in this house.
Since there were some cases that fell along nebulous lines, they would hear more types than others. She would attempt to fashion workable solutions to these huge constitutional black holes, and there are a lot of them.
Mm.
And she did this over the course of hearing many, many, many cases. Like with the right to choose, she would hear these cases, and each one would build on the next one. She'd build on past opinions and get more specific with time. And I say this like she's having a massive shift, when really in the span of 10 years, she sided with the conservative majority 82 times and the liberal justices 28. I'm not talking a huge thing, but it's
something.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a fourth of her cases.
Yeah, I couldn't ask for more, honestly.
When Clarence Thomas replaced Thurgood Marshall on the bench in 1991, O'Connor seemed to have beef with him.
Wouldn't you?
I would like to think she saw what a piece of shit he was and just couldn't stand it. Like, saw right through him right away. Like, I
hope
can
so.
see you. I see you,
Do
bitch.
you have X-ray vision, Sandra? Turn it on. He is a very complicated man.
People have layers, and some of them are shit on shit on shit on shit.
I was trying to be nice, B, but you're right. He's really not complicated. He's straight to the dome.
Yeah.
An asshole.
Did you hear they got another one too?
Who?
I don't remember.
Oh, damn. All right. Well, we'll get there.
It might have been Anthony Kennedy. I don't know.
Oh, shit.
I have no idea.
Is he related to like the Kennedy family?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, shit. Is he? Do you know how? Like a brother?
Let me
cousin or something.
Let me look at the news.
There's nobody in politics with the last name Kennedy that isn't related to John.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, Kennedy's a really loaded name.
Samuel Alito. It's not Kennedy. I apologize to Anthony Kennedy, but fucking Samuel Alito. That's the
I know
the
that
next
name.
One. He got to go on a what was it, like a luxury golf trip?
Ooh,
with a billionaire who later
of course
sitting in front of him. All right, so we're back to back to Clarence Thomas and what a piece of shit he is. So
P. Thomas, and the P stands for pissant.
Yeah, I forgot his middle name starts with P.
Fucking awful. All right, so Sandra couldn't stand him. She saw right through him, and whenever he wrote an opinion, for whatever reason, whenever he wrote an opinion, she would write a separate one. Even when they voted together on the conservative majority, if it was Thomas that was writing the opinion, she would write a different one.
I love her for this.
She didn't do it all the time, but like when she could, she made sure to have her own voice.
Yeah, she's not letting him speak for her.
It happened enough to where it was mentioned in multiple places.
I love that.
Which I think is funny.
Yeah.
So she was a fierce protector of rights and again interpreted the Constitution on a case-by-case basis. She viewed the Constitution as, quote, an ever-changing work in progress, unquote.
It is, ma'am. Yes.
It should be. It should be.
Yeah, that's right.
Allegedly.
It should be. I have my idealism hat on, but yes, it should be. Because they don't say that now.
Yeah. Did you know that the Constitution wasn't made in 1776?
Yeah.
So stop fucking showing up with these shirts that say 1776 on them. You fucking moron.
It was like 1790.
Yeah.
I thought it was in like early 1800.
It was. The 1790s was when they started having the constitutional conventions and started building all of these laws and the amendments, and that's why they're called amendments, because you can add them on and they're meant to be changed as time goes on.
I know. Somewhere along the lines, I think half the country forgot that.
I don't think it's half anymore.
Oh no. It's fair. Oh shit, you're right. I think at all my moment of realization.
What did B say?
I said I think it's more than that. We went.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm thinking is I don't think it's half anymore. I think it
inverse.
Anyway, this ever-changing tapestry of Sandra's brain basically made her the SCOTUS wild card. In regard to the First Amendment, she was all over the place. In some cases, like Zellman v. Simmons Harris, she held that vouchers for private schools being used for religious private schools were not unconstitutional on the grounds of availability. Most of the private schools in that area were religiously affiliated at that point. Basically, there were these vouchers that were being given out, like your kid can go to private school, but most of the options were only religious schools. So if you were a not religious kid, kind of being forced to go there.
That way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so their idea about it being on the basis of availability,
because there aren't many secular private schools available. So
right, but are they saying that like
it's available?
Yeah, go to a school that's available, but is it like you can go to a private school instead of public school?
Yes,
I think I'm a little
vouchers.
Okay.
It was vouchers for students to be able to move from public school to private school.
But because
the vouchers were good for like attendance at one of the many listed private schools, but most of them were religiously affiliated in some way, shape, or form because of that area. And there was an issue with like, well, what if I don't want to send my kid to a fucking Catholic school?
Then their idea is, well, you've got public school right there.
Yeah. It's like you can either do private school that might be religiously affiliated, but that's the only thing that's available. Like that's not a violation of your rights. It's just what's there.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And I have to, without knowing more, with the information provided, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's logical. And then there were other cases like Lee v. Wiseman, where she sides with the more liberal side. Lee was a principal of a school that was preparing for a graduation ceremony. So he invited a rabbi to come and give a non-sectarian denominational prayer for the beginning of the ceremony. He even gave the rabbi a pamphlet to help him develop a non-sectarian prayer for the occasion.
So I guess the question is, why did he have to get a rabbi to do this non-sectarian?
He could have gotten a pastor or preacher or anybody, but it was like, oh, I want everyone to be able to have like a non-denominational moment of spirituality. So we're going to do a prayer, and whoever you pray to, that's fine. And so maybe he was friends with the rabbi. Maybe it was like this was
so it wasn't like
it
to come and do it. Be that rabbi. Okay, I got lost in the detail, but
lost in the sauce.
Yes, I did get lost in the sauce, but I'm back.
So this girl named Deborah Weissman, she was a student at the school, and her parents filed an injunction to not have the rabbi pray at the graduation. It was struck down, and they went to graduation, and there was a prayer. But they got to the Supreme Court, and Anthony Kennedy delivered the majority opinion after changing his mind during deliberations.
Okay.
So Anthony Kennedy said this.
Through these means, the principal directed and controlled the content of the prayers, even if the only sanction for ignoring the instructions were that the rabbi would not be invited back. We think no religious representative who valued his or her continued reputation and effectiveness in the community would incur the state's displeasure in this regard. It is a cornerstone principle of our Establishment Clause jurisprudence that it is no part of the business of government to compose official prayers for any group of the American people to recite as a part of a religious program carried on by government. And that is what the school officials attempted to do.
Okay. So because they were school officials, which would then make them essentially a branch of the government, right?
Correct. They have to remain neutral.
They have to remain neutral. So having any kind of spirituality or prayer
is against the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
It's like having City Hall having a morning prayer.
Okay.
Yeah. Or flying some sort of Christian representative flag outside of it, whatever you want to.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense here. Given that like all the students in there have their own denominations, have their own beliefs, but they're being subjected to this moment of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay.
Or the right to not have spirituality and not have beliefs. That is violated by having them go to a required, like a big deal ceremony. This is their graduation. It's like the moment they've been all working for. Having them go to this moment of celebration and then having them be subjected involuntarily to a moment of spirituality that they may not be a part of.
Okay. And I can
hard pass.
Yeah, hard pass. I can see how they made that justification there. Random question. It's probably got a total reason, but on the subject of something being mandatory by a public school, but it's I can see why it would be allowed. It was in Texas. I was in middle school, and my mom pulled me out of school those days, telling them I was sick. It was like 2 days of no classes. It was just an all-day pep rally about abstinence for 2 days. No sex ed classes, no safe sex talk. Yeah. It was just about abstinence.
Abstinence celebration. There's a lot of places that still do abstinence-only sex education, and they make a whole fest about it. And it's not necessarily a religious thing.
The entire Bible Belt.
A lot of it is religiously affiliated. It's usually religious groups that push them to have them as well.
And I can imagine, absolutely, this was white Christian suburbia Dallas. I mean, this was absolutely Godtown.
With the big hair and the big crosses.
You got those. I called them the Texas helmet. You know,
I call it the bouffant.
Yeah, they were absolutely mega church town. And so I'm wondering how constitutional that was. But I'm given that it's not really a religious thing. It's just about don't have sex before you're married.
So I guess here would be the designation is when
the reason why.
Well, not even the reason why. I think it's more like how they present it, how they portray it. And you weren't there,
the reason why, if it's religiously motivated in the text, that's what makes it wrong.
In the text, is it like if you went to this abstinence only thing, is it like, are they quoting from the Bible? Are they talking about specific types of morality, just in case this and that and the other? Or are they talking about it specifically in terms of like sexual safety and avoidance of STDs and all of that stuff? Like,
and that's important.
Trying to focus scientifically, or are they trying to focus religiously? And most of the time it is a very poor attempt at science to cover up the religious undertones.
Now, unfortunately, I don't have that because my mom pulled me out because she's like, there's no way I'm letting you get brainwashed.
Did you ever watch Parks and Rec?
Oh yeah.
The Marsha and Marshall Langman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
It's
Marshall is vivacious.
Stop. No, we are done.
None of this is allowed.
None of this. Oh, my wrist hurts doing that.
But that's a interesting gray area. And now I wish I kind of had some more information about how they taught it. From what I remember, it's also still the school, because it was during the 2004 election, Bush versus Kerry.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was one of 4 known liberals in this middle school. Me, one other white dude in my grade, and 2 black kids in the grade above me. The 4 of us were the liberals that people knew about. And the liberals. And it was in a Texas history class. And I remember this teacher's name, and I don't care if I call him out. Dr. Fogarty. Or Mr. Fogarty.
What's a doctor doing teaching middle school? Yeah.
It was Texas history, so I'm guessing it's one of the...
He's close to retirement. He got tired of teaching.
I think so, because he started putting up the map of the states, which states were red, which states were blue. And it was like a weekly thing where he would go about and kind of talk about the election and which states are what and whatever.
I would have loved that in middle school.
I found it very fascinating.
Loved it because it would have really like educated on how elections work and on how quickly states can change.
Yes.
Depending on what's going on.
Yeah, he gave us a lot of great information about that. But the problem I had is that he would talk shit about states going blue and would call them pointy-headed liberals. So then I started telling my mom that, going, Mr. Fogarty's fucked. This is what he said about me and the other 3 liberals in the school. No. And I cannot remember if my mom did anything. I think she brought it up to the school, but nothing happened. So
of course not.
Yeah. Fun side note. Thank you for letting me go down there.
I would just like to know how you make an abstinence-only pep rally last 2 days, because the whole crux of abstinence is don't. And I just imagine like a gymnasium full of children just erupting like,
yeah, I think they had like speakers come in. I don't know.
Right. Oh yeah,
it was like
probably local politicians, local business owners.
Have you guys watched The Righteous Gemstones on HBO?
I love that show. Oh yeah,
It's a must watch.
Okay.
it is an absolute must watch if you haven't
It's
already. I might
Mega
rewatch.
church family. John Goodman is the dad, the patriarch of the
yes.
church. It's very Joel Osteen-esque. It's great.
Oh,
It's a very
okay.
funny, satirical.
Please do.
It's
Okay.
written and created by Danny McBride. He's the oldest brother.
So good.
Adam Devine is one of the
Younger
children as well. He's the youth
Yeah.
pastor.
Yeah.
That's his role in the church. It's very
Okay,
it's
that
He's a
sounds
gym
really
bro.
He's the weakest of the gym bros, though. He's a
Yeah, he
wannabe
is.
gym bro.
He's a wannabe gym bro, yeah, and he's got like a gym buddy he's really close with.
Yeah, his buddy
Really
Keith.
close with?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So Keith is a former Satanist.
Yeah.
And he's turned. It's very funny. I'm telling
Okay.
you. Yep. You
All
should
right.
watch the show.
Please watch it. I'll watch it with you. I
Okay.
need to rewatch.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, that'll probably give you a good idea of what that abstinence thing was like. I wouldn't know for sure, but I can easily imagine
I
McBride,
had
Adam
plenty
Devine
of
doing it.
abstinence-only education growing up Mormon.
Okay,
I
I know
grew up
more.
in the Catholic Church. You don't have to tell me. The sex talks I got were literally don't. That's it.
Yeah, no other information. Just say
Nope.
no.
Don't.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. I
Mine
was
was,
very lucky. Thank
if
you, Mom.
you do anything, you will like devalue yourself for your future husband.
Oh,
You'll bring shame upon your already degenerate family.
You'll turn into a single mom, and how disappointed would we be in you at that point?
oh my God! They actually said these things.
No, I mean that
okay.
was the
But that's
under
the
the
subtext.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You'll go
Still.
straight to hell. I mean,
'Cause-
premarital
yeah.
sex is a cardinal sin. I mean, allegedly.
I remember saying I love you to a boyfriend in high school, and my mom legit was like, I only ever said that to 4 men in my entire life.
Okay, cool
Oh.
story, bro.
You also got married
That's
when you
sad.
were 19.
Yeah,
Ooh,
exactly.
yeah.
You made great life decisions. I'm going to make some different ones.
I'm realizing how
Also-
lucky I was.
Why can't I say I love you to a person that I feel feelings of love? Like,
There it
what the
is.
fuck?
That's got to be
Why are you
hard.
gatekeeping love?
That's
Because
so
it's
hard.
sacred
It is hard,
and
yeah.
Holy.
Mm.
Emphasis on the holes.
Oh,
Anyway,
dirty.
What?
so
Okay.
now that we've talked about the Establishment Clause and all of the lovely undertones that really implies that people try to fight every fucking day all over this country. Anyways, she was not having him. She didn't like any First Amendment cases that had to do with trying to impose religious practices on a non-religious world. Sandra didn't like.
Understandable. Thank you, Sandra.
Which is nice. She allowed secular people to be fucking secular. She also wasn't a fan of the Fourth Amendment being infringed upon. There was this 1979 case right before she started with SCOTUS. A man flying from Miami to JFK. The Miami people thought this man was a drug smuggler, and they asked for his ID, which he gave them. In Miami, he also consented to a bag search, but it was like 5 minutes before departure, so Miami just declined to search it. They did, however, let the DEA know that this man was flying to JFK. So they stopped him in New York at baggage claim. And again, he provided his ID. But this time, when they asked to search his bag, he said no. That was when the agents informed him that they would be seizing his bag and obtaining a search warrant. And then the luggage was held at the airport for 90 minutes while the DEA waited for a drug-sniffing dog to show up. When the dog got there, he signaled the presence of cocaine, at which time the bag was opened, and it was discovered that there was 1,125 grams of cocaine inside. And the man was arrested.
Whoa, that's a
Good
lot.
time.
That's a
Fun
very
weekend.
big bag.
According to law professor Jeffrey Rosen,
O'Connor was an eloquent opponent of intrusive group searches that threatened privacy without increasing security. In a 1983 opinion upholding searches by drug-sniffing dogs, she recognized that a search is most likely to be considered constitutionally reasonable if it is very effective at discovering contraband without revealing innocent but embarrassing information.
Interesting.
so, you know, those silly videos of like, people at the airport getting their bags searched and someone pulls out a big fat dildo or something.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden,
I've never
they're super
seen it.
fucking embarrassed.
I can imagine that's definitely on the
There's
internet.
plenty of videos. It's like, it doesn't.
I can imagine.
I mean, it's all the time. But this is kind of part of that. It's like, that's innocent. She isn't committing a crime.
Mm-hmm.
But that information is probably embarrassing for her to have all of these strangers at the airport now know that this is something that she has. So it's a very weird line that TSA like rides now because of this decision. And they don't really respect it a lot.
Not only that, not only TSA, I mean, if you get pulled over, I mean, you can say no to them searching your car because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they need a warrant.
It's like, I don't have anything in here that I need to hide, but like, it shouldn't be.
But you're invading my privacy.
Privacy.
Right.
Around the year 2000, Sandra was starting to get tired. She wanted to retire, and she told her husband, John, as much. He mentioned it around like their little social group and stuff, but O'Connor just didn't really feel like her work was done.
Okay.
She didn't want to retire while there was a liberal president in the office.
Oh.
In 2000.
Ginsburg?
What?
Is she talking about Ginsburg?
No, as a president. She didn't want
president. Excuse me.
So in the year 2000, there was an election, and I'm not sure if your little child brains remember this, but I wasn't even in the country at the time, but I remember bits and pieces of this election.
Well, I remember plenty of it. They held a child election in my elementary school.
Did they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. That's adorable.
So for anyone...
Ballot boxes and drop-offs and everything.
Oh, my gosh.
Always.
Oh, that's awesome.
Who won at your school?
I think actually John Kerry won in our school.
Nice.
Was he?
That's 2000.
At least in my grade.
That's 2004. I'm talking about year 2000.
Like Gore.
So
yeah,
George Bush Jr. and Al Gore, they battled it out on the campaign trail. Son of a past president versus the current vice president. Al Gore is
king of climate change.
Yes, he is very well informed. He is super into climate change. He really is concerned about trying to help save the planet, and so a lot of his policies are like eco-friendly. And
I'm pretty sure it's his wife, Tipper Gore, that's responsible for explicit warnings on CDs and music albums.
Tipper Gore is. Yes, wasn't that from the Two Live Crew situation?
I think it was actually an NWA album.
NWA, okay. Yeah, she was a big part of it. I think she really didn't. She was trying to take them out of the music industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anybody that she, was producing explicit music, she didn't want any part of it.
She needs to shush.
Wrong for the children.
She would hate WAP.
He would.
She would hate WAP and Cardi
But
B.
it has an advisory content warning on it. So
yeah,
maybe she wouldn't hate it as much.
All right. So back to her husband. So Al Gore, George Bush Jr. battling it out, and election night happens. It's really close. Bush gets a state, then Gore gets a state, then Gore gets 3 more, then Bush gets 4 more. And at the end of the night, Al has 266 electoral votes. And it takes time, and it takes a lot of time, but eventually Florida gets their voting report in. And by a margin of 0.009%, with a 537 vote lead, Bush wins Florida.
My God, it's minuscule. Is this where the hanging Chad comes in?
Absolutely. So this tiny, tiny margin triggered a recount, and Gore requested one. It stretched on. We've got the hanging Chad, which is talking about things that were voting ballot booths at the time. You had to kind of stick a little pin in, and it was done on paper. And so
punched out a hole.
Yes. And so it was like pieces of paper that hadn't quite gotten disconnected. Did they count or did they not? It was a whole thing. It stretched on. The recounts were by hand in a bunch of counties, and Gore had basically led in the country for the popular vote. Like he had the popular vote, the rest of the country, but Florida was the clincher. And if Bush got it, he'd be president, but the margin was super small. So it got pushed and it got pushed and it got pushed. And then it got pushed up to the Supreme Court. And as the final hand tallies were being counted on December 12th, the court ruled they're unconstitutional. The original count stands. Bush wins.
Oh, what was their reasoning for that being unconstitutional?
Basically, it was like you've had time to like appeal this, you've had time to do this, you've had time to do that. And I think
basically telling them they were stalling.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was not necessarily that they were stalling. Florida was taking forever to recount the votes. So it was kind of this frustrating thing. And it was a conservative-led court who had reasons for a conservative-led for a conservative president to get in. And by such a small margin, it was like, this could either stretch on until fucking January, or we could end it right now.
And just get the result we want.
Yep.
I mean, subtext.
I mean, like I said, Sandra didn't want to retire with a liberal president in office.
No, she did not. Imagine this happening today. It basically did in 2020. So 20 years later,
and that's kind of the crazy thing about it, is that like a lot of this we've seen play out in different ways over and over again. There were plenty of states that were recounted, and 2020 election, how many lawsuits did Trump bring? Like 60 something, and all of them were overturned about election fraud.
The best one though is Tucker Carlson.
Oh my God, the train wreck of that man.
What an asshole.
I know.
Oh my God.
I love to see that this party is falling apart from the inside, and it's just so like, so tasty.
I know.
They're both drama. They're both pretty dysfunctional.
They are.
One of my favorite things.
They're louder about it.
Yes. Well, and a lot more violent about it.
Some, yeah.
One of my favorite things has been, I don't know if either of you have heard about this, but in Utah, they did the whole book banning thing. They wrote all these guidelines, and then someone petitioned, according to those guidelines, to ban the Bible.
Oh no.
Because it fell under the guidelines and because it had all this stuff in it, they banned it. And then someone petitioned to ban the Book of Mormon because of all of these guidelines. So now suddenly the state of Utah is like, maybe
Florida literally just did the same thing with Ron DeSantis' book.
Did they?
Yes. He passed a law about certain books not being on the shelves. So like, all right, that means your book too then, dickhead.
Love it.
I love
the pettiness. The pettiness is what will get us through.
So the Wall Street Journal records that she didn't want to retire with a liberal president in office, but now that Bush is president, she gets to retire.
Yeah. Lucky you.
She votes in cases involving race and the death penalty, race and districting, which I will give her the gerrymandered pattern of proposed congressional districts. She voted, basically, there was this case in one of the Carolinas, and it was like all of the representatives for the state are white, but in this one district, like 20% of the population is black, and we'd like to have like to have some black representatives from that area. And they proposed this gerrymandered district because if other people can do it, we can do it too, to give ourselves the most representation. And so she was like, nah, that shape is too weird. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen like really gerrymandered areas, but they're fucking crazy.
I think I've seen some where they're just like this weird.
Illinois is full of them.
Illinois, that makes sense for sure, especially around like Chicago area.
In the suburbs, particularly, because you have a lot of red and blue bleed over and crossover as the sprawl, hits the other rural areas. And
so they end up like these tiny, skinny little.
Look at Cook County. Cook County in and of itself.
That's probably one of the messiest areas in the state, for sure. Chicago's a messy political area.
Yeah.
Oh, Blagojevich.
Well, he was, again, like some others, a symptom of a much larger issue, but no doubt a scumbag.
I'm trying
Anybody named Rod. I mean, come on. Who are we kidding?
trying to find this. In Oklahoma, they have like really bad gerrymandering, right? Come on. I want to see it as an image. Fuck. It's like right in this area. There's one that literally just goes like one street for like 4 or 5 blocks. And then they kind of
Just
have
one
little
street.
bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looks like a dumbbell. It's really weird.
That is crazy.
No, you know, it kind of looks more like a dick and balls.
A dick and balls.
Yeah, there's like a big area over here, and then it kind of narrows down to like one street, and then there's like a little blip over here because it's a super wealthy neighborhood. Yeah.
It just feels so not okay to do this.
It's not. I mean,
but I guess they do.
It feels not okay because it's not okay. Yeah. So, but she did say like it was too gerrymandered to actually approve. So I will give her that. She chose on cases on affirmative action of specifically hiring people of color in certain businesses, or allowing or preferential treatment towards accepting students of color rather than white students to a certain school as a way to satisfy certain diversity requirements that they had.
Okay.
There, in a case that a white kid didn't get accepted to a school, it was openly targeting acceptance to those minority students, and he just got upset. So the court said, no, that's a needed thing. We still don't have enough people of color going to college.
Mm-hmm.
In 2002, she heard a case involving the death penalty. Daryl Atkins, 18 years old, drunk, high, and with an IQ of 59, along with his buddy William Jones, abducted, robbed, shot, and murdered an airman from the nearby Langley Air Force Base.
Oh my God. Why?
I think the IQ pretty much.
Well, okay, yeah. He didn't think much about it.
He admitted to the crime in his cell and he was sentenced to death. But during the trial, he was tested and it turns out he was, quote, mildly mentally retarded. So they appealed to the verdict on the grounds that killing Atkins would be counter to the Eighth Amendment, stating the death penalty as a cruel and unusual punishment.
Right. I mean, it's such a rough, complicated situation. But then again, yeah, with his IQ being so low.
The court was 6-3. O'Connor joined the liberal majority. And this is what she wrote.
Okay. Because intellectually disabled people cannot communicate with the same sophistication as the average offender, there is a greater likelihood that their deficiency in communicative ability will be interpreted by juries as a lack of remorse for their crimes. They typically make poor witnesses and are more prone to suggestion and willing to confess to placate or please their questioner. Thus, there is a greater risk that the jury may impose the death penalty despite the existence of evidence that suggests that a lesser penalty should be imposed. In light of the evolving standards of decency that the Eighth Amendment demands, the fact that the goals of retribution and deterrence are not served as well in the execution of intellectually disabled people, and the heightened risk that the death penalty will be imposed erroneously, the court concluded the Eighth Amendment forbids the execution of intellectually disabled people. All right, I see what she's saying, where it's that the jury probably will not take their IQ into consideration when it comes to the consequence. So like she said, they're going to assume
on Netflix called I'm a Killer.
Or I have seen that. And then this also reminds me of Making a Murderer too.
Yeah. So the majority of the people on that show have an IQ of like in the 70s. Like really? Almost all of them, have an extremely low IQ.
Okay.
And that was a big reason why a lot of them were taken off of death row, was because of exactly what we're talking about.
Right. And I mean, I have to say, I personally understand and would agree with this amendment here and would uphold it myself.
Yeah.
I mean, even in this case with this gentleman, I love how I'm saying gentleman, but this plaintiff, I don't know why the word gentleman came out.
The murderer?
This plaintiff. Yeah, the murderer.
Right.
This plaintiff.
Question.
Yeah. I mean,
the convicted killer.
The convicted killer. I forgot what I'm saying now, but I see what they're doing here, where they're
You
like,
understand why they're not putting him to death.
Exactly, because
Right.
the jury would not be able to make a fully informed.
Well,
You
he
know.
lacks the capacity to cooperate effectively
Exactly.
without being influenced.
Yeah.
And that includes in the act of what happened as well.
Kind of
Yeah.
along the same lines, have you guys seen what is it, the confession tapes?
Yes.
That's
only
another
saw
one
part.
where that's another one where when you are in a decreased mental state, whether it's you're inebriated or you just have decreased mental capacity, a lot of times the act of being in questioning for a long time is just exhausting, to the point where it's very easy after hours and hours and hours of questioning to elicit the response that you want.
Yeah, you become highly suggestible.
Yeah, you can suggest things that without actually suggesting it, and have people become more agreeable with you. And then they give false confessions that, because you have it on tape, now you can then use to nail their ass to the floor, even though they may not have done fucking thing. You've just kept them in there.
You
Not to
coerced
mention-
a confession out of them that was unrightfully.
And they may not even know that they are allowed to have a lawyer. A lot of times they may not know to ask for a lawyer to understand their rights. So yes, I would definitely uphold that.
Just everyone knows you do not have to interact with a police officer. You can walk away and wait for counsel. If you are being detained or anything, the only words that should come out of your mouth are, I want a lawyer.
I want to speak to a lawyer. Yep.
Yeah, just because you didn't do anything does not mean that you're safe.
Okay, this one's a fun one. I really enjoy talking about this one. So she ruled on cases involving election law, because we kind of talked about it before. She set down limits and standards on how political money flows. I'm not going to give a lot of credit to her because it's still rampant in DC, but she made it like one step harder, which is still not very hard for people that want to deal in a lot of money. It's a complicated concept, so I'm really behind on political literacy, but I'm learning. So do either of you guys know what soft money is? So this is literally copy pasted from the terms in Wikipedia to explain some things. Quote, campaign funds are legally defined by the Federal Election Campaign Act as funds used for purposes in connection with the campaign to influence the federal election of the candidate. Dark money is spending to influence elections where the source of money is not disclosed to voters. So anonymous donations where you don't want someone to know where that money is coming from. Soft money is money that is not supposed to, quote, advocate the election or defeat of a federal candidate, unquote, but instead to be used for, quote, state and local elections and generic party building activities, including voter registration campaigns and get out the vote drives.
Okay. So pad from the bottom.
Yes. So unlike hard money, there are no federal contribution limits on it. And then hard money is regulated contributions from an individual or PAC to a federal candidate, party committee, or other PAC where the money is used for a federal election. So basically, hard money is like, we're just straight up being honest about where this is going, what it's using for, who we're giving it to.
Cold, hard facts.
Hard facts. Dark money is anonymous donations. We are never going to release this name, or it's business through business through business through business through business. And then soft money is just like, it's not necessarily for this guy, but if this guy is the one that's running on this ticket, like he can use
vote
it for these campaigns and all these like fundraisers and stuff if he wants to. And whatever's left over, I mean, I guess the campaign can get it.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you donate to a political campaign directly to a candidate for the purposes of supporting their cause, hard money. You're donating to influence this certain person or this certain cause to be affected in a certain way.
Okay.
Soft money isn't given to any specific cause. It's for the general betterment of the political party, just to strengthen it. They don't specifically request that funds go to certain causes, and it can be used in much more creative ways. Senators John McCain and Russell Feingold worked together to create legislation that would put limits on those provisions and severely injure the opportunity for campaigns to make their candidates a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
The bill was called the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, colloquially called the McCain-Feingold Act, or BICRA.
BICRA.
Its key provisions were 1, a ban on unrestricted soft money, donations made directly to political parties, often by corporations, unions, or wealthy individuals, and on the solicitation of those donations by elected officials. 2, limits on the advertising that unions, corporations, and nonprofit organizations can engage in up to 60 days prior to an election. And third and finally, restrictions on political parties' use of their funds for advertising on behalf of candidates in the form of issues ads or coordinated expenditures, etc.
Okay.
So basically, you got to start being honest about where your money's coming from, and we've got to start having limits on how much people can
auditing
spend.
the campaigns.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't have more than this many ads in a day, or you've like unions can't be donating to certain candidates within however long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's signed into law, and a bunch of advocacy groups like the NRA and the Democratic Party of California, and even representatives like Senate Majority Whip Mitch fucking McConnell, they all had piece of shit. They all had their little feathers ruffled about it. So they sued.
Of course.
They sued. So the district saw that the act had one unconstitutional section, and then the other two were fine. It went to the Supreme Bench in September 2003, and there was absolutely zero consensus.
Oh, shit.
All
Our
right.
little lunch meeting didn't work.
Oopsies.
Who wants to read this?
I'll read.
Okay.
Yay!
Where did I just...
On December 10th, 2003, it issued a complicated decision totaling 272 pages in length that, with a 5-4 majority, upheld the key provisions of McCain-Feingold, including 1, the electioneering communication provisions, which required disclosure of and prohibited the use of corporate and union treasury funds to pay for or broadcast cable and satellite ads, clearly identifying a federal candidate targeted to the candidate's electorate within 30 days of a primary or 60 days of a general election. And 2, that the soft money ban, which prohibited federal parties, candidates, and office holders from raising or spending funds not in compliance with contribution restrictions and prohibited state parties from using such soft money in connection with federal elections.
All right.
Go ahead.
Oh, it sounds reasonable so far.
Reasonable?
Ish. I don't know. I tell me more. Maybe I
It's a
misunderstood.
lot of jargon. It's kind
Yeah, it's a lot of jargon, so I might need some layman's terms.
So they upheld the electioneering communication, which is basically you have to limit the amount of money that your campaign or other people can spend on ads for you within a certain amount, within a certain timeline of an election.
particularly as it gets closer.
Yeah.
Do you remember like that episode of Parks and Rec, since we were talking about Parks and Rec earlier, where they do like the last ditch effort for Leslie to beat Bobby Newport in the election?
Yeah. They've got the bus. They're going up.
Exactly.
They're going all out. They're doing a little tour.
Right, stop stuff like that.
Okay. And that makes sense. All right.
So, and then 2, it's the soft money. Well, so if and it's not necessarily like to stop that. They can do that. But
I mean, like limit within the final voting window.
Right. You can't like
stop having people like say a union was like, let's go, Leslie Knope. They couldn't buy ads time, increasing her ad space on TV for 30 days up to a primary or 60 days up to the general election. She can campaign all she wants, but she can't have more airtime than any other candidate. And it can't be from a union. And then the soft money ban, which basically you've got to actually tell us who the money is going to and what it's going to that person for. Like, how are you going to spend the money?
Okay.
I cannot stress enough how divided the court was about this case. So this is how the decision spread. First, we have 3 different majorities. There is the Stevens, O'Connor, Stouter, Ginsburg, Breyer majority. There's the Rehnquist, O'Connor, Scalia, Kennedy, Souter majority. There's the Breyer, Stevens, O'Connor, Souter, Ginsburg majority. There are 3 concur/dissents. So 1 is Scalia alone. 2 is Thomas joined by Scalia in part. 3 is Kennedy joined by Rehnquist in full, Scalia, and Thomas in part. So when it's in full or in part, it means like they either helped write the entire opinion or they only helped with this one portion of it.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's 2 sets of dissents. We've got Rehnquist, Scalia, and Kennedy, and then we have Stevens, Ginsburg, and Breyer.
All right. There's a lot. Yeah, this court had a hard time.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, and it took a long time. I mean, 272 pages, that's a lot to basically be like, this is complicated, but it's got to stop. And of course, now
I would love to know how volatile it got in that justice room. I would love to know, did anybody throw anything? Did anybody scream and yell?
I think that those people have enough therapy and enough like experience in judging calmly in their lives to be able to sit calmly and have a discussion on how these things go.
But does a calm discussion produce 272 pages?
Yes, sometimes it does, because it can go into like a lot of nuances. It can go into, well, what if they want to use it for this specific purpose? How, would that have to be defined, or would that have to be just, could that be under an umbrella thing? What is considered soft money? How do we limit that?
I see.
There's a shit ton of stuff to be able to.
Yeah, they had to get into the weeds.
272 pages, because this is dirty shit. And now, of course, we can just create a 501c3, 501c4, done.
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah, this took time.
Sandra was getting really tired. Like, these are complicated decisions. Publicly, she was part of the longest sitting unchanged SCOTUS bench in history. But privately, her husband was fading.
Oh.
I absolutely mean no disrespect. In my notes to go over this section, I uncleverly noted the section as poor John Jay and his shit brain.
Oh no! With all due respect, John.
He developed Alzheimer's.
Oh.
So it literally kind of ruins your brain.
He's got tapioca brain.
He's got tapioca brain.
Oh.
In 2005, she formally wrote to President Bush to state her intent to retire. She would stay on the court until Bush found her a replacement. Mm-hmm. In a move worthy of a moving scene, Sandra left for a fishing trip, and while she was gone, Bush made the decision, and he announced all of this. And on the way back from her trip, she just happened to hear the announcement of John Roberts on the radio. She's like on her way back from this fishing trip. She's listening to the radio, and then all of a sudden Bush comes on and he's like, I hereby nominate John Roberts.
Okay.
Sorry. I hereby nominate John Roberts.
Yeah.
Said it way too smart.
John Roberts.
John Roberts.
John Roberts.
That's better.
John Roberts. So she wasn't really happy that she wasn't being replaced with a woman. She had respect for John, as he had presented plenty of cases before the court already. She was very familiar with the quality of his work. But then in September 2005, William Rehnquist, her boyfriend, he died.
Oh.
He had been fighting cancer, and they had been friends for a very long time. So Sandra spoke at his funeral. Mm-hmm. Bush moved things around very quickly. He appointed Roberts as chief instead of to replace Rehnquist, and then he worked to find a replacement for Sandra. He called up a woman named Harriet Myers for the spot. In a very Bush move, he had appointed the head of the search committee for the justice as the nomination for the justice. Do you remember when he did that with Dick Cheney? So Cheney was in charge of like finding him a nominee for vice president when he was running for president. He's like, I need you to find me a VP. Okay. And then eventually he was just like, all right, you'll just be my VP. And
Oh, shoot.
so that's how
Okay.
Cheney got the job. Was
Oh,
he
I
was
did not
the
know
head
that.
of
That's how Dick Cheney became president. What are we talking about?
yeah. So he basically was just like, you know what? You're in charge of searching for her, for this person. Obviously, you can do just as good of a job.
Yeah.
It was a fucking flop.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, her confirmation hearing was a disaster, and she was unprepared and ill-informed. So she requested Bush accept her stepping down from the nomination. She was like, I'm not doing this.
I made a mistake. Sorry.
This was a mistake. Her last opinion on the bench was another abortion case, this time involving the right to privacy for a minor seeking an abortion. She wrote the opinion and was joined unanimously, which doesn't really happen a lot. Bush finally settled on Samuel Alito, who was sworn in January 2006.
Yeah, that happened.
Quote, on Alito's nomination, O'Connor said,
I've often said it's wonderful to be the first to do something, but I didn't want to be the last. If I didn't do a good job, it might have been the last. And indeed, when I retired, I was not replaced then by a woman, which gives one pause to think, oh, what did I do wrong that led to this? If I didn't do a good job, it might have been the last. And indeed, when I retired, I was not replaced then by a woman, which gives one pause to think.
I was the first woman to do the thing that I did. I was poised to be an example to everyone. And I expected, because I did a good job as a woman justice, to be replaced then by another woman justice. I expected to prove that women could do this job. So when you nominated a man to do the job that I have been doing, I kept thinking, what did I do wrong that got me to...
I see.
Why couldn't you pick another woman?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would definitely probably think the same thing.
Yeah. What did I do wrong?
Yeah. What happened here? I proved that we could do the job. I did the job well. I was very much, I didn't just go off precedent. So like, what's happening?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
It's like getting fired from a job going, your work is shoddy at best. And it's like, wait a minute. What?
Then how was I on here this long?
But I did good things.
Yeah.
I fixed things.
Yeah. Well, what happened after that?
So she's retired now. It's time to end, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wrong.
And it's not time to retire then.
After this, she started stepping in as a sub for absent judges in various federal courts. She would sometimes fill in a bench when people were out of town for one reason or another. She did this for a while. She spoke around the nation doing her little tours, and she spent time with her husband, obviously, who was still fading. She supported Barack. She warned other female justices about what SCOTUS is actually like. And she was an all-around activist for education, Alzheimer's, and pretty much whatever she wanted to be an activist for. It's like, I got a cause. All right, I'm going to go teach a bunch of people about it and why they should do this.
Love it.
She was a part of countless social programs, social groups, and conferences. And when John died in 2009, she moved back to Phoenix.
Ah, okay.
In 2013, Sandra's friends noticed that she was getting a little more forgetful. And as the years went on, her mobility was affected. She has developed some sort of dementia and is living in an assisted living facility. She was the first woman on the Supreme Court bench.
So she's still in a facility, just kind of living her life.
She retired from public life, I think back in 2018, and has just been living ever since.
I hope she's happy. I hope she feels fulfillment in her day to day, because she did a lot, and she should be. I mean, but I feel bad that her memory's slipping.
It happens. I mean,
it does happen.
It's sad, but it happens.
It's aging.
And honestly, of all of the life that she lived, can you imagine reliving that life? I don't think that'd be too bad.
No, not at all. I mean, I just hope that, I hope she's doing well, because damn, she did a lot for us, for women in general, but also for, I think, just for the political system in general. She didn't take it lightly. She knew, I think, the gravity of her position, and I think she really did a good job with what she was given. Being the first woman on that bench is scary to think about.
Yeah.
I love it.
Like a woman's voice for the very first time on a bench of people that had up to that point just room full of men.
The first woman to really have a direct consequence on laws.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big.
And not only did she have a direct consequence on laws at a federal level, but she had a history of affecting laws at local and state and all of these different levels. And she did it so well, she got herself to the bench.
The big house. The big bench.
The big house.
The big house.
And as we go on and we talk about more of these Supreme Court justices, we will obviously have favorites, and then we'll obviously have ones that we're not as big of a fan of. But to be the first of anything is really fucking hard. So giving her dues, like, this is a crazy cool. I mean, that must have been such an honor to be like, of all of the women judges in the nation, Reagan, idiot that he is, still chose me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I can't imagine.
That's Sandra.
That's Sandra.
That's Sandra.
That was Sandra Day. That's my singing, guys.
Love it.
Well, thank you all for listening. And thank you so much for learning about Sandra Day with us. This has been an episode of Well Behaved Women with Lauren, Big B, and myself, Hannah. If you want to learn more about us, you can go to our website at Well-Behaved Women Podcast. No. Is it Well-Behaved? I should know our website at .com.
And then it's Well-Behaved Women Podcast at gmail.com if you want to talk to us.
Yes. If you want to find us, we are on Reddit. You can find us at r/Well-Behaved Women. And then you can also find us on Instagram at Well-Behaved Women Podcast. Yep. And then we don't really use the Twitter, but it's Haved Women.
Yes.
And then there is, we're going to get them. I already did I do Instagram?
Yeah, you did. We've got a Facebook too. So find us there. And we're going to start releasing all of these kind of mostly raw, unedited videos on YouTube.
If you want to see our faces
and listen to the rants that I end up editing out where we just kind of forget what we're talking about.
You could see Lauren's kick-ass tan.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I got punched in the face by the sun.
In the face, on the shoulders, on the arms. Yeah. You got beat up by the sun. And it's
so different too. Like, look how pale my arm is.
You can see like where you were sitting on the chair and the sun didn't touch you.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, thank you, everyone. We look forward to hearing from you at some point, or you can hear from us next week with another episode. We'll have another woman to talk about.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Later.